All right, I think we're going to move on now to our next segment, I believe. The digital transformation of industry continues to accelerate apace. In our little corner of the world, of course, there's no question that the culture and strategy and the tools forming the Quality 4.0 mindset are changing the game for those in a variety of industrial sectors. In his recent QD article, Quality 4.0 in Life Sciences, Selecting Technology for Competitive Advantage, Dan Jacob of LNS Research delves into the nature of Quality 4.0 for those within highly regulated environments. In particular, it's clear that best-in-class life sciences companies are finding great benefit in a structured approach to Quality 4.0 when it comes to innovation. And as usual, as we all know, it's the support of top management that truly makes or breaks Quality 4.0 adoptions for those organizations. So joining us now to chat about these issues is the man himself, Dan Jacob. Dan, welcome back to Quality Digest Live.
Dan the man.
Thanks, guys. How are you today?
All right, how are you?
Good, good.
Awesome. Okay, so this question we ask everybody whenever they come on the show to talk about Quality 4.0 is, okay, what is Quality 4.0? I mean, we're hearing the term like daily now, and I'm not sure everybody is exactly clear just what we mean when we say it.
Right. It's a great question, and I think it's. I'm glad you're hearing about it regularly. And we just were down at the Quality 4.0 forum that ASQ put on a few weeks ago, and it's a great thing to see that the attendance had increased about 60% year over year. But there's still hundreds of people there instead of thousands, and a lot of them were coming to really learn about it. So the appetite in the market is really to try to get educated on this, which is a great thing. The way we've defined Quality 4.0 is that it's a digital transformation of quality, which let's explore that a little bit and what that really means. So first of all, when we first defined the term and what Quality 4.0 was a year ago, there was 11 elements we wanted manufacturers to consider. And really what it all comes back to is that Quality 4.0 is an opportunity for manufacturers to get new insights and for those insights to impact quality. That starts with connectivity in data. So you think about where a lot of the market was at in years past, with spreadsheets and emails and maybe some homegrown systems to manage core quality process data. And unfortunately, actually, a lot of the market's still there today. But as you build that out into enterprise wide quality processes and get that data under control, you start getting new insights. And that's really traditional quality, but it's very important to where we're going in the future. On top of that now, we have new insights you can gather from connected machines and manufacturing operations. So that's not necessarily anything new. We've had connected machinery, but in many cases to gather the data from those assets, you would only do that, it was very expensive, so you'd only do that for your most critical assets. And if you look at connected products, in some cases, there's manufacturers like elevators and aircraft engines and others who've had connected products for decades. But by and large, that wasn't really the case. And so now you've got this opportunity again, from a connectivity perspective, to start gathering data from connected products. Another opportunity to connect is to connect with suppliers, right? So to start getting more insights from suppliers, to start getting data from both the products they're providing to you in their processes in a more seamless fashion. You can get data from the customer directly. For those who are in consumer goods and those who have maybe over-the-counter drugs, for instance, there's a new digital voice of the customer. That's what I'm starting to refer to this as, where you're able to gather data from online marketplaces and gathering data from social media, so you can understand how your product compares, what the complaints, you start quantifying those complaints and understand what the attributes are that lead to success and those that are inhibiting your success. So you get some really valuable insights back in the beginning of the product development process. And again, this idea of, again, connected the product itself. In a lot of cases, when we look out in the marketplace, if you launch a product, it's been difficult to understand what happens to that product after you launch it. And now you can get new insights there. So that's really the connectivity that gives you the data. And then there's the analytics piece that takes that data and drives new insights. So let's go back to the manufacturing operations example I gave earlier. Let's say you connected some assets, right? You're able to track data from between multiple stations in a production line. That's actually a manufacturing operations use case for Industry 4.0. It's not specifically quality, but if you begin to take metrology data associated with a product that's coming off that line and using that metrology data in concert with the manufacturing operations data, now you can start driving new insights that can look at predictive quality to understand what the variations in manufacturing operations may result in negative outcomes in your product. And that can be extended very broadly. You can begin to look at, what are the critical parameters, for instance, that I have on this product that really mean something to the customer as you expand your scope and your focus of this data and the insights you can drive.
And Dan,
so hopefully I gave you a little bit of detail. It's, again, at a high level, it's this idea of, looking at a lot of these, the data and really the new insights. But insights by themselves aren't transformative. So one of the key pieces is how do those insights, it's not just a matter of doing it faster or maybe even a little more accurately. It's how does that stuff impact your product? How does it impact your culture? How does it impact your processes? And there's a lot of very discrete examples around how that's manufacturers are using that to drive toward things like close to zero defects or much higher customer engagement in the marketplace or your workforce as well. Connecting very closely with your workforce.
So Dan, you write in your article that life sciences in particular is kind of disproportionately engaged in quality 4.0 innovation. Why is that? And what's the driver behind that level of engagement in your mind?
Well, all manufacturers have a good degree of engagement, but life sciences has some very specific, specialized requirements that are driving, the need for digital transformation. Some of these things, there's really three of them. One of them is the regulatory compliance landscape. It gets increasingly complex. If you look at EU MDR, some of the regulatory information that you need to submit in order to get your product accepted to be able to be sold in a given marketplace. There's many different elements here associated with regulatory compliance, and it's getting increasingly complex. So just the idea of digitalization to get your arms around that data and not let it boil you down, because all that stuff is a huge impact. We talked about operations a second ago. You talk about service. The more regulatory compliance aspects that are there, in many cases, we hear from manufacturers that they're focusing more on the compliance than necessarily focusing on delivering the quality of the product. And that's pharmaceuticals and medical devices. And obviously the intention is to deliver the highest quality you can, but it becomes extremely distracting when you've got all these different elements that need to be considered. So that idea of digitally transforming just to meet the regulatory compliance in a scalable fashion is one element. A second is there's a lot of complexity here around the value chain. So CMOs, CROs, connecting all that in, and the value of having visibility through the value chain is a critical element. The FDA and others are beginning to focus on that as well, looking at blockchain through the supply chain for the drug supply chain. So there's a lot of value to getting your arms around that to avoid potential recalls and major escapes. And the last one's really around this idea of real world data. So the FDA has begun to really open open up to real world data, and that real world data could be things like data in clinical trials from wearables or from mobile devices that patients are interacting with. It could be in-service data of devices and creating a digital twin around devices that can be used back in simulations during the product development cycle. So it's becoming much more open to that, and that opens up the door for life science manufacturers to do things like transform the way that they look at regulatory compliance in-house. Regulatory compliance with some of these changes can have a substantial impact on a life science manufacturer's ability to compete in the marketplace. If you can take that real-world data and use that in simulations, and use that in your clinical trials, for instance, as well, or connect that in with your regulatory information management systems and your product submissions, you can begin to cut down the amount of time to market that it takes you to launch that product. And then therefore, you can also connect this to the patient. So looking at patient outcomes, how well does this product suit the patient? What are the specific issues that we can address in further product development? So there's a lot of opportunity here to transform the market, the life sciences market, around regulatory compliance, and many of the manufacturers are really examining this in detail and exploring it today. So when we talk to one of the things we've seen in pharmaceutical, for instance, is that there's been the arrival of a new role, the digital quality leader, and that digital quality leader is really there to help build out this digital transformation and help advocate quality's position and regulatory compliance position in digital transformation of these pharmaceutical companies. So we're seeing a lot of real evidence of that, practical use cases being deployed in the marketplace, but also new rules that are being developed to help champion digital transformation of quality and regulatory compliance in life sciences.
Well, Dan, Jacob, always a lot of great information from you and from LNS Research. Thanks for joining us today on Quality Digest Live. Really appreciate your insights into Quality 4.0, and life sciences. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Dan. Talk to you later.